So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Industry Updates. My name's Louise Russell, Director at Tutton Russell Consulting and Chair of this session today. As you're probably aware, Industry Updates is a quick-fire session, so our speakers have the challenge of introducing their service, project or new product in 5 minutes, and the group are going to cover quite a broad range of initiatives today. We're going to hear about author tools, research integrity, usage statistics, and much more. So we're going to dive straight into the first presentation, and I'm very pleased to introduce Kim Eggleton, who's Head of Peer Review and Research Integrity at IOP Publishing. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Louise. That saved my first sentence introducing myself, so I've saved a minute already. For anybody that doesn't know, IOP Publishing are a small to medium-sized publisher of physics journals, ebooks and conference proceedings. We've been with the same peer review submission provider for about 10 years now, and inefficiencies and workarounds have really started to significantly affect our costs and our performance. And so at the end of last year, we felt that the time was right to try and develop something that suits our evolving needs and the needs of our stakeholders. And with that in mind, we went into partnership with Meresier, who are a provider of conference workflow software. So we've been working with Meresier for a couple of years already on our conferences products, and we love the working relationship that we have. They're innovative, they are very responsive to us as a spokesperson for the publishing industry, and they take our views and make magic happen, which is phenomenal. So we felt really confident that they'd be an amazing partner for this project. So we've partnered with Meresier, and we've got 3 key goals for our project to deliver a brand new peer review system. Efficiency. Reducing waste is super important. There is a lot of waste within the peer review process. There are workarounds, there's a lot of waiting, so there's a huge amount of potential, I think, to make peer review go faster with the right kind of software built in. Anyone who's anyone in scholarly publishing knows that integrity is a huge challenge at the moment. And that's another thing that we have a really great relationship with Meresier in the way that we're working on integrity challenges together. They're already building integrity products before this partnership. We're very keen to make sure that integrity is maintained and caught, obviously, as early in the process as possible where there are challenges. So on this quality issue, I think integrations are the absolute key. It's not possible that one provider is going to give everything that you need, I think anyway, in an integrity space. One of the things that we're really keen on is that this system that we're hoping to develop will enable us to integrate quickly and efficiently with some of the most cutting-edge tools out there on the market in the integrity space, which many of you will know of. We've got to respond to quickly. And finally, the last goal is experience. And that's really speaking to the fact that our stakeholders always moan about speed. Every single survey I ever open is like, yeah, it was great, but it wasn't fast enough. So we know we're letting them down from a speed perspective, but as we move into that AO customer pays focused world, customer service is going to be something that they're starting to judge us on. I think we're already there, to be perfectly honest. And so customer experience has absolutely got to be a critical part of this project. So what we've done so far, as you can imagine, this has been a huge and complex project already. Peer review is a complex process. At IOP, we manage peer review in-house, so we have a large team of scientific editors. And with a 10-year-old system, we've built workaround on top of workaround on top of workaround. So there's been a lot of work just in actually mapping processes, and we've held over 25 workshops between IOP staff and Meresier staff just to map out the processes that we have. Meresier have been fantastic in doing a lot of stakeholder outreach and conducting qualitative interviews with researchers representing the author, the editor, the reviewer groups, and finding out where their pain points are, what their frustrations are with peer review processes and systems so far. And just recently we've agreed on what our service vision is for this project, so exactly what we're going to deliver, not necessarily what it's going to look like, but the bare bones of like where's it going to start, where's it going to end, and what's going to be in between those two endpoints. And now we're starting to think about our roadmap. What can we prioritise? what's going to be the most complex bit of this project? Do we kind of bite that first, or do we leave that to later on? Where's going to deliver the biggest value? Which players in the market are going to be influenced by which bit we're building? So that's the stage we're at now, right now, is just looking at our roadmap. This is just an example of the smallest bit of the process and how, swear word, complicated peer review can be. I won't bore you with any of the detail, but just know that my head was a mess after that, and anyone that wants to read that, please don't, just save yourselves. So what's next for us? We are hopefully going to be entering the stage of prototyping quite soon, so we're looking at wireframes and so on within the next couple of months. Alongside that, we're also going to be building a bit of an engagement group for an external engagement group. So we obviously have our internal stakeholders, but we want people from the author, reviewer, and editorial board communities to be on this journey with us. So we're currently building a user group who can be kind of learning and testing and evolving with us and making sure that we're getting that real-time feedback. And then finally, we're going to be moving into testing, hopefully within 2024. Which will be a long and no doubt educational process, but one that we absolutely need to go through. And I think we've all, both Maurizio and IOP, accepted that this will not be not be an easy project, and it won't be a quick project, but it's absolutely one that's worth doing. And I should say that internally at IOP, running underneath this entire project is a huge piece of work around change preparation. That's change for our staff, that's change for our customers. Bringing in a new system, everybody wants it, right? Everyone's like, oh, the current one's rubbish, we need something better. But then you deliver them something better and they're like, oh, actually, I liked it the old way, don't make me change. So there's a lot of change preparation going on behind the scenes to make sure that when we do release this, it will go well, people will be onboarded quickly, and the whole thing will be a shining success. Ultimately, what we're trying to deliver with this project is serious transformation, using a service design approach, learning as we go, but really trying to put some of those legacy systems to bed now that we've been living with for a long time. And ultimately creating that sustainability. This is a system that's going to take us into the future with integrations at the heart of it so that we can evolve and we can move quickly and hopefully without breaking anything. That's the plan. So that's the update. Huge thank you to the Maurizio team. I know some of you are in the room, and the team at IOPP as well that are behind this project. It's a labour of love, but one that's very much worth doing.
Thanks, Kim. Our next speaker is Lucy White, Marketing Manager at the Royal Society.
Hello, I'm here to talk to you today about our recent partnership with ResearchGate. So, the Royal Society is the independent scientific academy of the UK, dedicated to promoting excellence in science through various means, including publishing. We publish 10 journals that cover the whole of science, including Philosophical Transactions, the world's longest-running science journal, first published in 1665. And ResearchGate was founded in 2008. It's a professional network for researchers. It's something like LinkedIn for academics, where they get to show off their research, and it also provides a forum for discussion. And it's popular with over 25 million members and over 340 million page impressions per month. So historically, publishers and ResearchGate haven't always seen eye to eye, but now ResearchGate are actively engaging with publishers to work collaboratively. They have something we want, access to a large engaged audience of researchers, and we can offer them valuable journal content. So we were the first society publisher to partner with them, and we were inspired by Springer Nature, who partnered with them in 2020. The collaboration works by the publisher syndicating version of record articles to ResearchGate, so authors can easily link to the correct published version of their article from their ResearchGate profile, and other users can discover the research and see where it was published. Syndication is a fairly straightforward process with Atipon, but I think wherever your journal content is hosted, ResearchGate can make it work. So in June 2020, we piloted the syndication of content from our journals Open Biology and Royal Society Open Science. So here you can see an example of how a syndicated article looks and the download with our logo and links to the journal profile. And you can see here the journal article views and downloads received on ResearchGate as a result of the syndication pilot. So ResearchGate are now offering publishers a journal home partnership for an annual cost. And this includes content syndication, a journal profile on ResearchGate that users can follow, journal sections on all syndicated articles, and engagement metrics. So here's an example of our ResearchGate journal profile for our journal Royal Society Open Science that highlights journal content, summary stats, board members, and links to the external journal profile and author guidelines. So the journal profile is linked to from all syndicated articles, providing awareness of the journal to readers. And ResearchGate also captures audience engagement metrics for each journal to track readership, awareness, and consideration of users. So in March 2023, after the success of our pilot, we extended our partnership, making all backlist and frontlist content from all of our journals available on ResearchGate and creating 4 new journal homes. So you can see from the graphs that this has already had positive results. So in conclusion, in partnering with ResearchGate, content syndication will bring more downloads, and there's a workaround available for subscription content. Journal profiles brings journals to the mind of an ideal audience and takes users to the considering stage. And overall, the partnership has brought increased visibility, accessibility, and consumption of our journal content, and evidence of users moving from readers to being aware of us to considering our journals for publication. So if you're interested to find out more, I've linked to a case study about our experience. Feel free to email me or Philip Hess from ResearchGate with any questions, or find us at the conference today. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Lucy. Our next speaker is Ivy Cavendish, founder of 2Write and head of writing solutions at Springer Nature.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. So, as Louise just said, I'm Ivy Cavendish, the founder of 2Write, the scientific method for scientific writing, which is it's a digital platform that uses, perhaps quite unfashionably for the moment, psychology as opposed to AI to make the process of writing scientific papers, theses, etc. faster, healthier, and more accessible for researchers at all career stages. And today, I'm going to take you through our journey from 2 academics sat in a tiny little flat in Angel in London with a problem to solve, all the way to getting acquired and hired by Springer Nature. Now, I'd like to start off with how it all began. Now it was 2019 when all this started. I was writing a PhD in English literature, and my partner was writing his own in computational biology. We were co-working one day, and like many scientists have found, he was getting incredibly frustrated with the process of writing up. I mean, he was trying to condense this big tangle of research that he'd performed over 3 years, all the experiments and the twists and the turns, the wrong turns, the right turns, all of it into what eventually needed to be this incredibly fluid and clean piece of prose with all the information laid out in black and white. And he was feeling pretty down about it all. I mean, he had worked so hard over the course of these 3 years. This write-up, it should have felt like a victory lap, but instead it just felt like yet another hurdle to overcome. And after 6 months, he only had about 5,000 words down, and they weren't of publishable quality. And pretty soon his time and his funding started to run out, which brings us to that day, the day we were co-working. Now, he was supposed to be writing a literature review, and he was starting, as we all do, with notes scattered everywhere, 50 tabs open, and a blank document open on the screen. After a couple hours of typing and backspacing, all I heard was fists slamming down on the desk with him saying, "I don't know how to do this. How are you even supposed to write a literature review?" So as an academic of literature, I sat down with the problem and created what ended up being a narrative structure made up of sprints formed of questions and bite-sized teaching modules. And I mean, I was hopeful, but I handed it over thinking, well, it might help, at least a little bit. Can't hurt, right? Well, 25 working hours later, he came back having written 15,000 words, which later passed at Viva. There he is, on the day of his Viva. And well, after several more tests with similar results, that was it for us. That was the day we knew that we wanted to make this method accessible to everyone. And so we formed a startup, which pretty quickly was venture capital backed by Bethnal Green Ventures, who committed funds to allow us to start rolling out our solution to this age-old problem of scientific writing. And so, in March of last year, we launched our first free beta platform to write abstracts, a free tool that anybody could use to write an abstract in a manner that's quicker, actively protective of research and mental health, and more accessible to those who are neurodivergent, who are language learners, and those who have home care responsibilities. The platform works by, first of all, doing away with the whole start from a blank page approach that inevitably leads to an unending cycle of 2 steps forward, 1 step back of redrafting. Instead, replacing it with a highly supportive, sprint-based format that reintroduces dopamine and that feeling of reward and progress back into the writing process where it belongs. So first, you build out a narrative out of predefined narrative building blocks. Then, those blocks turn into questions to be answered, supported by all the teaching you would normally receive all in one go during an intensive scientific writing workshop. Then, those answers you've written are stitched together to form a complete draft. Easy breezy. No wonder the average time to write an abstract using 2Write is only 30 minutes. Within 3 months, we had spread by word of mouth, no paid marketing, to 80 institutions around the world and appeared on the cover of Research Information. It was then that we were first approached by Springer Nature, and in December of last year, we were officially acquired and hired as part of the growing research solutions portfolio at Springer Nature. Really, really exciting things are on the horizon for 2Write, and I can't wait to share them with you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivy. Our next speaker is Julia McDonnell, who's Publishing Director, Owned and Product at Oxford University Press.
Excellent, thank you. So I am here to talk to you today about a new product that is coming to market called Sensus Impact. But before we get into what Sensus Impact is and how it might be able to benefit you, I wanted to start by talking a little bit about why this product is being developed in the first place. So I think it's fair to say that things used to be a bit simpler than they are now when it comes to publishing. If you look back, a couple of decades ago, it was a relatively straightforward environment. We worked primarily with institutions as our main customers, and we were able to work together as an industry to produce Counter as a standard to be able to report on the value of what we were offering to those institutions so that they could understand what they were buying. But I think it's fair to say that things are quite a lot more complicated these days, and we're now in a much more fragmented and multifaceted environment when it comes to the stakeholders who are involved in publishing. So, funders are far more critical to the research publishing enterprise than they used to be. And we need to really be able to do a better job of talking about the value of research and research publication to all of those different stakeholders, many of whom are currently either underserved or basically unserved by the market at the moment. And I think the principle being that where there are payments, there has to be accountability. We have to be able to demonstrate the value of what we are doing. And that is where Sensus Impact comes in. So Sensus Impact is a community-led initiative. We want this to be of the community for the community to demonstrate the value of the publishing community. And it's really about being able to have a standardized and shared infrastructure to better support that value narrative so that we can go to stakeholders, and particularly focusing on funders initially, who have been one of those very underserved communities when it comes to representing the value of what we're publishing. Now, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, so as much as we can, we want to make use of existing standards when it comes to impact metrics and impact data. It's also going to be a great opportunity to start sharing some more information than has been possible previously. So Sensus Impact will include usage data, which has often been one of those very hard data sources to get for certain stakeholders like funders, and to do so at scale. Obviously, when you have a very fragmented environment, there is a risk that lots of people go out and try to solve the same problem, and that results in a lot of duplication of effort and inefficiencies. So the idea here is to try and build it once and build it right. But if you're doing that, of course, trust is really key. We all need to be able to understand and to trust that this is being done in a way that serves all of our interests. So that's where this neutrality comes into play. So for complete transparency, Sensus Impact is being developed by Silverchair in collaboration with HUM, and both organisations have representatives here, so I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions. And I'm talking to you today because it was a concept that came out of OUP originally, but that has since been discussed and developed with a much wider group of stakeholders within our industry. So like I say, it's really something trying to be of the community for the community. Now, the first phase is in development. There should be a beta launching at the end of this year. As we move into next year, the focus will be on sustainable models to support the product going forwards. And crucially then, really looking out beyond the initial stakeholder group of funders to other stakeholders who we can better serve. And going back to yesterday's plenary, really thinking about the impact metrics and the impact data that is presented, so that we can help with that reformation of research assessment and research publication assessment. So at its heart, Sensus Impact is about showing that value. And what that's going to mean is concatenation of usage, citation, and attention data. So this is not just looking at citations and impact factor like we often have. It's looking at all of those core impact metrics that exist around research and putting them together into dashboards that stakeholders can use. So, for example, this screenshot on the right shows a sample dashboard for the National Science Foundation, so that they would be able to go in and see, drill into the data underneath this for usage, citations, attention, around the research that they have funded, irrespective of where it's been published, assuming that the partner publishers have taken part in Sensus Impact. And that's really intended to help us make sure that we can support the direction of travel for the industry, so that we can do the investment we need to into research integrity. I mean, anyone who was in the panel discussion earlier today will understand that there's a lot that needs to happen with research integrity. And that is going to take time, it is going to take money and investment, and we have to be able to showcase the value of that investment to the stakeholders who sit around the global research ecosystem. So there's a lot that needs to happen here to really make sure that we are doing a better job of demonstrating value to all of those people. So if you're interested and you would like to find out more, please do go to the website. You can sign up there to get involved, to find out more information, and to stay up to date. I've included some logos of the organizations who are already committed to this, and you'll see there's a full range there. So it's including societies, publishers, funders, and vendors. And we really want to have that whole breadth of representation so that we're taking this forwards as a whole research publishing community. So hopefully you will join us in that endeavor, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Julia. Next up is Stuart Maxwell, Chief Operating Officer at Scholarly IQ.
Thanks, Louise, and afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. So, yes, I'm from Scholarly IQ. We've been providing usage data and counter reports for 20 years. And recently we produced something specifically for open access to really have a sort of a simpler way of gathering those usage data metrics, but in a way that that's being processed to the counter standard. So our kind of purpose for doing this was really to sort of drive that demand for trusted usage and trust in the data we're doing. When we look often at open access reports, we talk in views, downloads, hits, page impressions. There's all sorts of metrics we use there. The question is, though, is there continuity in those, both over time within a publisher and also potentially, across publishers we're dealing with as well. So we've had these standards for 20 years. They're not just about subscriptions, they're looking at our reach. So we look to have that against global usage for the data that we have for our users, and to do that at an item level so that we can pivot that back to provide that transparently to authors, funders, wherever it might be, for those stakeholders that we have. So our requirements for doing this, to get sort of counter support to say, yes, we can say these are counter process metrics. Now, for anybody who's ever produced a counter report, has gone through a counter audit, you'll know there's a lot of heavy lifting to get all the semantic data to make it correct and pass through the validation tools. So we needed a simple implementation that can gather the fundamental data that's required there, but allows us to process it to those standards and then expand that data set to add in other parameters, make that accessible through reporting portals, make it open and transparent to users so they could see that usage, and to sort of embed those metrics. And then also if publishers want to sort of further sort of progress through to counter, then to have a transition program to go to that as well. So that was our sort of foundation about what we're doing. So we're fully audited and compliant right to the item level metrics for counter. So they said, yep, we can talk about these metrics of Orca being supported by that counter standard. So our output is essentially straight off the bat is to have some best practice books. So we look at these reports, so the item reports, the usage over time for those, aggregated up into titles, the authors we have, the geographic reports, so we look at the IP location for those. If you've got your database of institutions and IPs, we can pivot that to the attribution for the institutions. If you've got it within the page metadata of where the authors are coming from, then we can pick that up as well within that tag, and so you can attribute about the source for the content, and that may be funder references, etc. as well. Organization type reports, and that's the organizations. We also have an integration with PSI, with the IP registry. And if you've got metadata there for things like subjects and topics, concepts, etc., then again, that can be brought up, and it gets some really interesting trended data that goes into sort of predictive modeling around subject areas, and then you've got all those pivots to segment it back against geography, etc. as well. But all the time working off some metrics that are known. So we talk about requests, total item requests, unique item requests, that are used by the industry and have done for 20 years. So that's the sort of the aim for doing that. The embedded metrics is about serving that data back up. So using an API service so that next to the item itself, you can have those metrics there. That's accessible to researchers, to authors, to funders, can see that data there. We were talking yesterday morning, as Elizabeth was mentioning about sort of for researchers, what they're submitting there. We do find with some publishers, their authors ask them, say, can you tell me what my usage is, because I can pass that back through to say what I've been doing, what's my reach been. And so having transparent counter data helps again to support that. So use cases, I've kind of gone over these. Generally, it's about the global usage. So we're looking not just segmented of the counted usage by the institutions who are using it, it's all the usage globally and looking at that, but with that granularity to dive into the item and those underlying bits as well. As I mentioned, subject areas, author trends, running through from those, making that data available to funders so it's transparent and it is comparable. From the models that you're looking at. I'm not sure exactly where I am with time, but I'll kind of leave those and they'll be accessible for that, but it's about those elements we've got. Okay, and so what we're doing from this, we can implement this very simply, particularly if you've got something like Google Tag Manager. It's just an insert within GTM. We've already got the documentation up for that. We insert a bit of code. It means you don't need to go back to your platform or technology provider to do that. If you haven't got GTM, we can put a pixel event tracking code in there. That will get the fundamental underlying elements that we need to produce that data. And then from that, we will standardize and produce those best practice playbooks. And we'll embed in other parameters depending on what's available in that data. So that will give you that trusted counter data. And we're happy to offer a free 3-month trial for anybody who wants to have a look at their own content, their own usage with those counter data metrics, with no implementation fee, no service fee. Just set it up and start streaming that data coming through in real time. And that's Orca. So if you want to have a look at that and give it a go, then give me a shout. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Our penultimate speaker is Leslie McIntosh, Vice President of Research Integrity at Digital Science.
Hi, and thank you for having me here. So I'm going to start out with a question. How many of you in this estuary of water would drink the water? It's free and it's open. Are you sure? Okay, we need to have checks on open research, just like we would have checks on open water. That was the best slide of it all, the picture. The rest, just forgive me on the marketing team at Digital Science. Digital Science, where I am now at, is a company that advances research through technology and now through a thought leadership team and thinking. We have a few products here. One is Dimensions. Dimensions is an aggregation of and a linking of multiple sources of data so that we can have insights into information and make decisions based on the data and the information instead of just guessing. And I want to talk about what we've done with Dimensions in in implementing algorithms within it so that we can look at research integrity and research security. I look at this in a few ways, from the individual, from the organization, and from the geopolitical. And we want to look at the rigor, and we also want to look at dodgy stuff. So, well, I do, right? And we all want to prevent it. So I was very fortunate to develop a company and become an academic, then entrepreneur, and develop Dimensions Research Integrity, formerly known as Repeta. And what I'd say is we really use Dimensions Research Integrity to look at this space. We want to look at good things. These are based upon these trust markers. These trust markers are based upon all of the checklists. They're the over 500 checklists within publishing. They're based on things that we know and that we care about within policy. And what we can do when we apply those algorithms is we can, to over 33 million documents, we can actually see what the trends are in the environment. What I'm showing you here is a dashboard that is for publishers to be able to understand how you are doing and what you are doing when it comes to these trust markers. If you'll see, this is in development. We've just released one for institutions, and we're rolling this out very soon. So if you want to get a look at it, hopefully that still works from last week in Australia. I didn't double check, but if not, we're going to keep going. The other thing that we've worked on is author analysis, which is really the dodgy stuff. Now, this is by request, but this looks at authorship for sale, fake authorship, misconduct, paper mills. We're looking at leveraging Dimensions, ORCID, formerly GRID, and other things to look at those email peculiarities, impersonations, that type of thing. And I'll give you an example of this. Pharmacon Neuroscience turned up as a funder. This was one of those trust markers. It's a fake funder. When we looked at the fake funder, this was the publication of this network within a few years' time. We can do this with the power of algorithms, with the power of Dimensions. Here was the suspicious researcher that we were able to identify, and this was 2 years, a sample of 2 years of publications. This ended up in 2022 Retraction Watch of the year, Watch Post of the year, excuse me. He's no longer a researcher now. We're also looking at Dimensions Research Security, which is really focused on the geopolitical dodgy stuff. And in that, we're looking at dual affiliations that weren't necessarily declared. I am putting somebody up there who was outed because he was he was a professor at Harvard who is no longer a professor at Harvard. So, these are kind of the dodgy stuff. So we want to look at the good stuff too. But we now have an app. I will tell you that institutions and funders are very interested in this. Why should publishers be interested in this? Because they're looking at this and they want to understand the integrity of the people that they are bringing in or have. The last part of this diagram is the conceptual stage of organization, kind of the dodgy stuff over there, to make sure that we have all of this covered. And unfortunately, this is happening, and this is, I think we all know about, for instance, the tobacco industry, who got scientific articles, dodgy scientific articles, within the scientific ecosystem, got them published, and they're used in court. I'm looking at how that happens and how we can prevent that. Conceptual stage means it's not automated yet. So within digital science, we have 3 big tools: the basis Dimensions, we have Dimensions Research Integrity to look at some good stuff, and then we also have the security to look at the dodgy stuff. If you want a demo, please let me know. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Leslie. Our last speaker is Tasha Mellins-Cohen, Project Director at Counter. Tasha's actually joining us virtually, so fingers crossed that all works okay. She's kindly joining us despite just coming off a flight from the US, so thanks very much and welcome, Tasha.
Thank you, Louise. I hope everybody can hear me and that Martin will stop me if you can't hear me. So I'm talking to you today about Counter Release 5.1. And just as a bit of background, we are different from most of the other people you've heard from today in as much as Counter is a community-led foundational standard for the publishing industry. We are not a commercial product. Anyone can and should use the Counter Code of Practice. We came out of the challenge that arose 20 years ago when everybody realized that every publisher, every platform was measuring and reporting usage differently, and we needed a way to define a download. So that is what Counter is for, these consistent, credible, comparable usage metrics. And we release an update about every 5 years on average. And the latest update is release 5.1, which was published in May of this year. It is our membership who developed release 5.1 in response to a number of factors that are listed on this slide. So that's the open content, the bibliodiversity, and so on. Now, we know, and I certainly know, having done it myself, that changes to the code create work for report providers, so that's you guys, and also for report consumers, the libraries, the consortia. So that's why we try to keep our releases as infrequent as possible and to make the changes from one release to the next as small as possible. And I know release 4 to release 5 was a really big jump. I promise release 5 to release 5.1 is not as big. Here are the key changes that we're looking at. The first one is item as a unit of reporting, and Stuart has already introduced the concept of item. For you and me, that's articles, book chapters, specific database records. And we've shifted to have item as our unit of reporting because it massively facilitates open access reporting. And we have put OA really at the heart of release 5.1. Don't forget, we still do all the subscription stuff, but we now really are optimized for open reporting. This change primarily impacts books, which have been brought into line with all of the other content types, instead of being treated as a special case as they were in release 5. We've also updated our access type definitions, which means we no longer refer specifically to OA Gold. We are not defining a specific open access business model within release 5.1. We have just instead said something is controlled, it is open, or it is free to read. So this has reduced the confusion about how to define open within your Counter reports. We've expanded our list of data types. So we had 14 different data types in release 5. We now have 28. Together with clarifying those data type definitions, we believe this will make it easier to report granular usage information and to accurately compare usage across publishers and over time. As part of that change, combined with the move to item as unit of reporting, our old section type attribute has become unnecessary, which makes reporting a lot easier. The other thing that makes reporting a lot easier is that we have upgraded our Sushi protocol, which is the API used to harvest Counter reports. It is now much more robust and much more easy to work with for publishers and for libraries. We've also overhauled the JSON schema, which is the format in which reports are delivered, to use OpenAPI 3.1, which means the report files are much smaller, they are easier to produce, to validate, and to use. That sort of also meant that we've made some shuffling around to put the documentation on a more modern service. Everything is linked in the code of practice. There are a lot of very much smaller amendments and clarifications in release 5.1 compared with release 5. The big ones that are important to you guys are the global item reports. These are really designed to help everybody prove the claim that open access drives increased usage by showcasing Counter's normalized usage metrics for worldwide usage at the really granular item or article level. We recommend that all report providers, but particularly those offering open access content, should provide the global item report. And I'm really excited to see in this session that there are 2 initiatives already building off of this principle. A less spectacular change, but one that I hope you will all appreciate, is that we have also overhauled the audit process to be much more transparent, much more comprehensive, and more reflective of actual usage patterns, which I hope will make the audit process less painful for everybody, me included. There's a huge step forward in Release 5.1. I cannot do it justice in under 5 minutes, but what I would like to say is please do visit our website. Everything that you need is linked from the website, projectcounter.org, but you can also always drop me a line at any point and I will very happily jump on a call and talk you through anything that you're unclear about. I think I'm on time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, Tasha. I think you'll all agree that was a quick gallop through quite a number of different areas there. Before we finish up, I need to let you know that there'll be a 5-minute break next to allow everyone to change rooms if needs be. The next session in this room is diversity in commissioning. But before we do that, I just ask you to join me again in thanking all of our speakers and for sticking so perfectly to time. Thank you very much.